Good morning, everyone. I'm glad y'all are able to join us this morning. Got the Google machine wound up, and we're hopefully everything will work out while Mrs. Steve's not here. But as always, appreciate everybody being here tonight. I see we have a new member, Phoebe. Thank you for being here, and I'll do my quick introduction, and then we'll get started here. As always, um, I'm Steve. I'm a retired law enforcement officer, had 20 years of service. Started off my career in jail, worked road, went into investigations, had all different types of training from SWAT to becoming a state certified crime scene tech. And during those 20 years, I've investigated all different types of crimes from thefts all the way into homicides. And with that being said, we'll get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. Yeah, let's see here. We're going to start off the show tonight that as I was trying to look at some stuff and trying to get all the information out, especially since we do a lot of deal with a lot of children missing. We're going to be talking about Cyclops a little bit tonight. There was, as I was doing some research, some of the child safety stuff, and I saw an interesting thing, and actually tomorrow I'm going to update my phones with all the pictures of not only people in my family, but of my grandson, so that you can always have on your smartphone a recent photo of one of your children. And I thought that was something that found interesting that we all, I've lacked to do. And so I'm going to make sure that happens tomorrow. And that's just something that we want to do, and we'll continue as we move forward with this platform. And as we spread out, we'll try to have some safety tips, not only for the children, but for adults and other persons, as our society, about being aware, situational awareness of our surroundings. Because as we see with the true crime world, that there's so many things out there that it's so easy that you can become trusting of your home and not see what's happening. And so as we look at what happened with Idaho, with Delphi, it only takes a moment for things to turn absolutely upside down and place you at risk. So we're going to be covering little safety tips here and there as we go on with this platform, and during the morning watch. And like I said, it's a new platform, and it may take us a while to get our legs, figure out exactly how we're going to do everything. But if you have any ideas, most certainly let me know. But the big story currently, as we all know, is Idaho and Kohlberger, who has been charged with 4 counts of homicide. And so we'll be discussing him tonight. If you have any questions, we'll talk about him. And of course, we've got the probable cause affidavits broke down. I did a little visual aid. And then we'll also, if you have any information on the Delphi case, and I'm just going through a quick scan of everything out there that I have some information on. The latest news we have on the Delphi is from the 4th of January of this year. The attorneys are requesting, the defense attorneys are requesting some more funding. And so as the court proceeds, that'll be coming, we'll hear more and more as the court progresses. And then as I was speaking on the Cyclops, for people out there that are new to my channel, one of the things that that you see across all the web sleuth channels out there, true crime, and it's a great thing that all of them do about missing persons. Well, when Mrs. Steve and I started our channel, we saw that, and as we was doing investigations into missing children, murdered, or children, that we decided that it wasn't easy. There's not a set database out there that universally just covers children. That there's a lot of information out there across the states, and that's kind of hard to do that. So we went in and we decided to create our own database. and we have. And it has currently, these are the states that we have entered. And Mrs. Steve and our volunteers, as they send us information, we update and get more states in there. Mrs. Steve told me earlier that there's 2 more sitting on her desk that she'll be processing and getting in here relatively soon. So that's good news. And I appreciate all the hard work from my volunteers and Mrs. Steve. And like I said, if you have any information, and this is one of the biggest cases going on right now, and there's a lot of argument about some of the local new information that has been released about that audio. Is it real or not? And so they're going to be arguing about that. But if you do have any information about anyone involved in the homicides or about the suspect, most certainly contact law enforcement and advise them of whatever information you have. As this is, like I said, prosecution is and defense, they're all seeking information currently. And I'm sure that in chat, this is going to be brought up quite a bit. Another case that I've looked at in the past and I'm going to be working on in the future is the Florida 4, where the 4 girls in the Florida fires in Indiana died in 2016, which was just prior to the Delphi homicides of Libby and Abby. And if you have information on those, the latest update that we had on them was back in November of last year, where the mother was still praying that something would come and they'd have some more information, and they're still working on it, because we're looking at that, going on 6.5 years. And so we have to have them in our thoughts. And if you have any information, notify. Then a case I was speaking with Chris the other day on is Dylan Rounds, that as we move forward with that, and I'm going to be going out there to assist him at looking at some of the evidence that they have. And also will be the latest information that was released on this one was that in December 29th of last year, they said they had evidence pointing to a likely homicide. And so we've all feared that, and all pretty well have come to the realization that it's probably the case. And they have some suspects, of course, in jail, and whichever way that goes. But we're still going to be going out there attempting to see if we can't assist the family in whatever manner we can, and possibly find him and get him back to their family. And Michael Vaughn, which is is a very interesting case. The woman they currently have in jail for failing to report his death. The trial is currently being paused due to her mental competency. And will she ever be able to be put before a jury? We don't know. And the Evansdale, I worked some cold cases also. And of course, like I said, as I go through these topics, one of the cases I'm working on currently is Evansdale. And I'm planning on going back up in there relatively soon, just as soon as the weather breaks and I can get up there and get back to Georgia. My vehicles are not made for the weather for Iowa, but I will be going up there and speaking as soon as I can with Drew. And if you have any information on this case, and I'll be giving updates. Well, we're creating websites and other things for this case currently. If you have any information on that, absolutely let law enforcement know. The latest release of any information on them for Lyric and Elizabeth was on the 10-year anniversary, July the 13th, that they released some information on it, and they haven't released anything recently. And then, of course, I have another cold case going all the way back to 1983, who's the father currently lives in Indiana, and I'll be speaking with him. Whenever I go up to Iowa, I'll be stopping in and talking to him also. But I just wanted to cover all these little topics to let you know that if you have any questions about any of these topics, we're pretty well prepared. And if you have something other that you wish to speak of, just let us know, and we'll cover that. All right. Let me get over here to chat. See where we're at. All right, Lynn. Let's see. Phoebe's a new member. Appreciate that. We got Lynn. Truffles here. Single mom. Pigeon. Good to see you. Ricky Mountain, Maine, I guess. Hi, everyone. Good to see you. Too much mom. Good. See you. Single mom of 4. Yeah. Hello, Stephen. Everyone. Hope you're all doing well. We are. Laura, excellent safety tip. Thank you. And let's get trying to keep caught up a little bit better. And I did. Wednesday night of last week was my first night with this. And I was able to not shut down my computer or shut down the internet. And I was extremely happy with that. And Mrs. Steve has really worked hard on the Cyclops. Absolutely, she has. And as we move forward, it's going to be when we start looking at some more of those clusters and cases and things. And it's such a great database for anyone across the country that you can go in there and look up for children in your area that are missing or from any time frame. Because we go all the way back on that, I think to 1968. We cut it off at, of course, there's thousands and thousands of cases that are older than that. But I went back to 1968 for the fact that is a time frame that most of us in my generation, we can remember what was going on. We don't have to go back and ask grandparents about information. And so by looking at it and starting in 1968, it is something that we may only have to go back and ask one generation ahead of us about information on it. And we have where we could, and not only that, but the predators that were around in 68 and since are still out there more than likely. They may be advanced in age, but those predators are still out there and may be very active. And so we decided that when we was going to do the Cyclops and focusing of where we could have the biggest impact against predators, that's the years that we chose. And so we most certainly appreciate everyone that's helped us on that. And Justice Rosanna, Madison, Kaylee, and Ethan, absolutely. And hopefully they will be bringing some information on that. Let's see here. This is the one I've been asking you to look at, Mr. Steve. Which one is that? I missed which one. Let me go back up. Pigeon Mac. I missed which one you want. May have to send it back to me there, Pigeon Mac. I miss Mrs. Steve. I've been loving the new morning watch format. Yes, absolutely. She's asleep, hard asleep right now. And yeah, I look forward to this format. I enjoy it. I think Evansdale is someone's local. I do. I also believe that until I went to Evansdale, and I had looked at Delphi and saw all the parallels and coincidences and of similarities. When I went to Evansdale, and also I went to Delphi. We went to Delphi first, Mrs. Steve and I. And when we got there, it didn't take us long to determine that you had to have firsthand knowledge to have committed Delphi. And when I went to Evansdale, it's very similar. You have to have firsthand knowledge of the area of not only where they were kidnapped, but also where they were found. And so that was very revealing. I wasn't even born in 68. Well, and I know that's the case, but still we can go back one generation and you should be able to talk to somebody that was alive in 68. And you're, yes, and even older. Amanda says, I seen a case recently where serial killer was 66 years old. Absolutely true. And older. I mean, when you look at the Golden State Killer, who was just, although he wasn't active that we know of, that, you know, he had evidently retired out of the profession of being a serial offender. And but they are out there, and some of them are in advanced ages. Like the night shows because I'm a night owl. I do too. And you know, it. I don't know what the differences between individuals are in my family. All the rest of my family, they were day workers. I was a night worker, and I still enjoy working at night. That if I had a choice, that's exactly what it would be. And I want Evansdale solved. Absolutely. And I admire when you speak to the family and when you speak with Drew, um, everything that he's gone through is absolutely amazing. The fortitude that man's has, and I respect him. I can't imagine, but you can still hear the pain, and it absolutely is something that he um, thinks of every day. Ashley says I'm late. No, you're not late. I've only been on what 16 minutes. How can I download Cyclops? I don't know if you can download it or not. I'm sure there's some way out there. You can go into our website, truecrimeweb.com, and go into the website and look at and just search through there. As we get at some point, um, as we get more organized and we bring in some better people to work with some of the apps and stuff, we'll probably refine it quite a bit. Pigeon Mac, same for me. I always swung the graveyard shift. I hadn't heard that term in quite a while, and um, other than morning watch, graveyard shift was the other term that we used, especially in law enforcement. Josh Boss, I can't find Texas in Zone 8 of Cyclops. Is that one still in progress? Probably so. If it's not there, and it's supposed to be, Mrs. Steve and the volunteers as they work on those, and it goes in and out. I don't know. Um, I'll have to ask Mrs. Steve about Texas. Uh, and I think Texas, and I don't know what's on that list that they have right now. Um, Mrs. Steve tries to keep me as far away from the Google machine as she can, um, because I'm real handy. She says, Christine Robinson, I only just realized live was going on. I was fooling with Facebook. I should have been here. Oh, you're here now. That's fine. Um, you're fine. Um, it says, do you think they'll ever solve the Evansdale case? I surely hope they do. Absolutely, I do. I believe it's someone local that was an offender and he's known within the community. And it's not someone from the outside that was just passing through. I honestly believe that from what information I've looked at. And I believe that's as we go forward and proceed with some of the um, methods and the plan of action that we've got set up to generate those leads. I'm hoping someone will bring that information and that offender's name to the forefront. Absolutely. Let's see here. The lady who found their launcher driving past the gas station early morning worked the late shift. Yeah, I used to work late shift on the interstate and working on the interstate, and I worked on the interstate prior to working in law enforcement. uh, anyone that works at the service stations on interstates and things is far more dangerous than what law enforcement is. There's a lot. There's a lot of people come through that traveling interstate late at night that will absolutely get the hair on the back of your neck raised up. Let's see here. Let's see. She says, please have patience with me. I do have issues, so I may not ask a question properly. You're not going to mess up any question. I may mess up the answer, but you will not mess up any question. Guaranteed. But yes, if you have any questions about any of these cases, we're ready on those. And I hope I haven't missed anybody. And but the biggest thing that's going on currently with the Idaho 4, like I said, as the court proceeds and they have the gag order and the recordings, the audio recording that came out, and they're arguing and they're saying it's been debunked, and it probably, hopefully it is something that is not related to the case. It may or may not be. I have, regardless of either way, I'll not play it. Mrs. Steve and I have decided that was not the way that we wanted to go with our channel, but all creators in the YouTube world, they can go and do whichever way they want to, because it is information and it's highly debated, and if true or not, we don't know currently, and I don't know which way it will go, but we just chose to go down a path separate than that. But the time frames that's in the probable cause affidavit and the information that's contained in that affidavit is absolutely something that you have to look at. And as they progress with the case, that you have the DNA, you got the cameras, you got the phone, you got the vehicle, and that probable cause tells you currently what they have. But this isn't all they have. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I am speculating on that, but having spent 20 years in law enforcement and have been involved in thousands of investigations and dozens and dozens of homicides and death investigations, and probably hundreds of death investigations, but and looked at it. There's a lot more under the surface than what you let out, even in a probable cause. It does. I mean, all you need is just enough information to get that judge to say, yes, we're going to take him, and here's the paperwork, and go seize the individual, place them in jail, and we'll put them into the court system. And that's what happened here. And the probable cause affidavit is, pretty substantial still, but I still believe it's only the tip of the iceberg. And do I think that the only DNA they have of Brian Koberger at that scene will be the what's recovered from the chief? No, I believe they'll find other DNA, hopefully within the residence from him, and hopefully they'll also find DNA from the residents inside his vehicle, and the cross contaminations of either way will seal the deal. Of course, we all have to look at him currently that he's only been charged. He's not guilty of anything until that jury hears the evidence in the courts, and the jury finds him guilty of such. But we're at a part of the storyline where we want to be, that we have someone that law enforcement feels confident is the offender and is currently in jail. And let's see here. Let me go back up here to see where we're at, see what I have missed. Okay. And I have to get caught up here, guys. Some of these creators can really run through this stuff pretty good. But I'm not. Y'all just going to have to bear with me. Let's see what we got here now. I got caught back in here now. All right. It says, if the suspect was wearing gloves, would he have left some imprint on the outside of the kitchen window that the forensic team found? There's always a possibility that some of these offenders will look through windows prior to making entry. And did he, and if he's wearing gloves, uh, of course, he won't have any type of latent print that would identify him. But there may be something that shows that he was looking through the window. But as far as something to identify him, no. This channel doesn't seem neurotic like others. You're safe here. Yes. I hope that we never get neurotic. That's funny. And I do have a dark sense of humor, so you just have to bear with me sometimes. And he says that audio does not seem legit, in my opinion. Yes, I don't know how it could have been released, and I know it wouldn't have been released by law enforcement. I can see where someone could have recorded it, but I think someone's laying claim that it's from something from their library of security films or off their security system. But I believe someone is laying claim to it. If that's true or not, we just don't know. Just don't know. Let's see if I can get caught back up here again. Bible group. Steve, have you heard anything about BC committing other crimes? That would be investigated. Um, there's some of his friends, as I was researching, that were coming forth and talking about their relationship in school and when they knew him when he was younger, and what kind of individual he was. And if he is the type of offender that they're say he is currently, there is great potential that he does have a history of other offenses and crimes. Law enforcement will be looking at that and tracking those down. And now that they have a DNA profile that they can look at, a lot of those that they have known DNA on, they will be easily eliminated. But not in all cases, violent or otherwise, and even in death investigations that may have happened in Pennsylvania during his time there that are unknown. They may not have DNA profile. They'll still have to go and look at those cases and see if there's any way that they possibly are within his orbit and associations, and could he possibly be linked? That's a very good question. There's a lot of stuff. Look at the map of Iowa and Indiana, towns, names. Absolutely. There's so much stuff. Uh, I never realized how much information that as people back, I guess, when they was founding the towns, they moved from one town. When they found some area that they wanted to call home, I guess they just renamed it the same town. Single mama four. He cleaned his vehicle, but I think they will find something. Absolutely. I don't think that um, anyone is able to go into a vehicle and absolutely clean it, regardless of their knowledge of forensics. Um, with where we stand currently with the scientific techniques and where CSI is at now. I mean, it's absolutely amazing. Jennifer, y'all make Steve laugh yet? Yes, they have. They have. And Triple S is correct. I am confident they'll find blood under a car seat or around the seatbelt buckle. Seatbelts especially. Easily transferred, especially as you pull it across your clothing. And if you've been in a violent encounter where there is blood spatter, such as this type of homicides, that there is great potential for a lot of blood spatter. And from what the witness said, coming from where two victims were as he walked past, he didn't stop to clean up. He went out, and from the time frame that law enforcement's given us, it's a very narrow window. And so a lot went on, a lot of violence during those assaults in that short time period, and no cleanup time. So when he left, he went directly from 4 violent encounters and went directly and got into his vehicle, which gives the greatest odds that they will be able to find some evidence in that vehicle. Hit the Mac. Oh gosh. Phoebe says, "Hello, just got here. What audio are you chatting about?" It's the audio that was that has been mentioned as being the audio law enforcement's basing some of the timeline on, and they're saying it came from a security camera, and someone says that they have the audio. It's been leaked, and it's been playing by a lot of channels out there as possibly leaked audio. It's being hotly contested now. And you are correct. In this line of work, you have a dark sense of humor. And it is, I have lost friends. Think about it this way. You had to touch his seatbelt glass, the latch, door handle, steering wheel, shifter handle, shifter button, accessories, etc. The list goes on and on of various things. Absolutely correct. And as we drive, think about as you drive how often you'll reach down and take your hand off the wheel and just lay it on your thigh, or you'll scratch a place on your chest, or your touch different parts of your body as you're driving with different hands as you adjust. And from when his phone reactivated, they have a timeline and a digital footprint of him traveling for quite a extensive time in that vehicle. So there's plenty of opportunity, and they'll know at what points he stopped, and they'll be able to look at that. And did he at any point attempt to change clothes or anything? Was there any windows of opportunity? And if not, every time that he touched something from himself, there is the potential of transferring that DNA from one of the victims into his car. Where do you think he cleaned himself up? I can tell you that in certain crimes, such as especially with bank robbers, they have a safe ground, and some criminals do. If he did that study and they was talking about that, you would have an area so that when you leave your home, people who know you or may see you, that if they're watching the news and someone calls in, or if they listen to a scanner and a bolo or be on the lookout comes across looking for a certain individual that is dressed a certain way, and they just saw you leave your apartment 30 minutes before, there's a great chance that they may call in law enforcement and say, "Hey, my neighbor was dressed that way in a certain vehicle." And so a lot of times criminals will have a safe area where they can go and prep, and then after the crime committed, they reverse it and go back to that same area and dress back out, get back into their other clothing that is different than the clothes they wore at the crime scene. It's something criminals do. All right, what else we got going on here? I'm 93. Is motive important for a jury? To me, it seems impossible to fully grasp why someone would commit a crime. This seems like a motive that may need a psychological expert to explain. Motive is not necessary to be there for the jury to find it. It's good and to have, because it allows the prosecution to say that this is exactly why, um, you know, um, uh, such a homicide was occurred, but it's not required in any court proceedings. But they wouldn't, if they can identify and know, they will get it in there. If not, it's not necessary. I just have a hard time believing he came out of the gate committing a quadruple murder. And due to his planning, he may have not known that what he was committing himself would turn into a quadruple murder. He may have went there with the sole intent of only targeting one individual, and which turned into two, which turned into four. We really don't know uh, what the steps in his planning was, but law enforcement will be looking at that. Hi, so glad to catch us live. Yes, I'm glad you're here, Laura. Good to see you. Sometimes my little bitty fingers hit the wrong button, so y'all just have to bear with me on this Google machine. And this here is going to be huge. He stalked them, and he said 12 times since June or even August. From the affidavit, they have released information that when he would leave his residence, he would have his phone active in that area, uh, where within the area of where 1122 at the residence. And but the night of, he changed patterns. He didn't keep his phone activated when he went to that area, and which you'll have to explain. But of course, we always, it's been promoted, and we tell everybody that when you're driving, turn your phone off or don't answer or deactivate. And of course, that would probably be his defense. But they will also look at that. Well, in these other 12 times that we know that you left your residence and you drove to 1122 King, you didn't deactivate your phone. But the night of the homicides, you deactivated the phones, and we have your DNA in the residence, and we have your vehicle on whatever cameras. So that will be huge in the case, and that will be a huge battle they'll have to overcome. The defense will. Oh, Gusher Posh. On another channel, someone suggested that it's possible that Fender left the K bar intentionally to lead law enforcement in a certain direction. Thoughts? No, I think it was accidental. I think in the heat of the assault, that either it was yanked away from him, or it fell out of a pocket or out of his waistband. And if you look at, I think sort of like Crocodile Dundee, he always just shoved his down into his waistband, and that's how he carried his knife sheath. Is this how this was? And as I spoke earlier with my members show, and thank you, Josh Posh, for the $5 support. Really appreciate that. It helps a lot in the channel. But as I was telling people earlier, that in my law enforcement career, it was not unusual to run across individuals that either with holsters for firearms or um, knives that required a sheath, and a lot of times just pocket knives or drugs, that they would just toss them to the side. They would never actually have them a knife attached to them or a gun holster, especially if they're on probation or parole. And so you would find a lot of times at night, searching within 20 feet of an individual, knives, guns, drugs, and as we stopped and did investigative inquiries at night, much like what law enforcement was doing that night, just a few hundred feet from the homicide, when those officers were talking and doing the welfare checks and the beverage checks on the other children or young adults. When you get my age, they're all young children. Does the necessity of motive depend on the type of sociopath or psychopath? Some kill for revenge, money, sexual desire. There are a rare few that were born different. The psychopaths are born absolutely different. And the sociopaths, I believe, can be developed. But you're absolutely right. There's a lot of different motives for them. But the ones that live in a fantasy world with the psychopaths, that they go back and forth and they commit these crimes to satisfy whatever deviant fantasies they have. They are a different individual. And if, like with BTK, he stood up in front of the court and explained his behavior and how a serial offender would commit and would have multiple victims that he was stalking, and why. And it was absolutely fascinating. And I believe one of the professors that Brian Kohlberger was studying under had strong connections with BTK, as you would expect. Most of the professors in the criminology world would have some type of interest. Um, Laura, so I've always wondered if they did this with Delphi. Did they check all the pings and cameras before to see how long the predator cased the bridge area? Absolutely. I believe they did with the Ives interview with Delphi. You can look at his interviews, and they talk about all this digital information from the cell tower pings and how they cross-reference of what phones were the first time that they were ever pinged in that area. What phones regularly pinged and what phones have never pinged since. And so they did a massive data dump and searches of that information. But yes, I believe that was a part of it. And I'm sure they're going to use every possible way of finding DNA to get the stakes as absolutely as high for this case. You're absolutely correct, sir. I wonder if he was attempting an SA where the sheath came off his belt and he undid his belt, but he wasn't expecting the fight the young women put up, so he was unsuccessful. That's an interesting perspective. Um, Law enforcement um, will look at that intently, I'm sure. Also, I might be able late discussions, so we ignore this. No, it hasn't been answered. But why did he spare a victim who saw him? Also, I'll get a laptop and join the membership. Thank you. I appreciate all support. Um, he had been in 4 violent encounters, and what was his state? What had happened during those final 2? Because I always thought myself that when he entered, he had first encountered um, Ethan and Xana, and then went up. That's what I always thought the process was. But if you take the witness for what they said and the way that the affidavit reads, that the crimes actually began on the third level and progressed down onto the second level. And um, and so was this obviously a change in his plans? And did he plan of committing them in this order? We don't know. But there is a great possibility that something happened, because we know that at least one of the witnesses, or the one witness that we have on the second level that survived, said that she did hear a disturbance up there. And she also heard where someone said that there's someone here. And so was that Xana or was that upstairs? Law enforcement is unclear with who it was, but that Xana was on texting at that time, and she was awake. She just had a food delivery. And so did they, while the surviving witness door was closed, did Kohlberger step down and see Xana staring at him, and then pursued her into her room, and of course commit the homicides there? And then during that engagement, was Ethan able or Xana able to either hurt him or put him in a position that he's exhausted? It's not hard to imagine the exertion he would be under and the adrenaline rush that he would have. And the human body can take only so much of adrenaline. I've been there. I've been in some fights that I've narrowly survived. And I can tell you that if you go from even a 8 minute, which I think is one of the windows of opportunity that we're discussing, that if all the information in the probable cause puts that timeline that these homicides occurred between 8 and 15 minutes, the shortest time is 8 minutes. And that's still a long time for you to be having that adrenaline dump and the exertion that would happen, and leaving that final conflict, and possibly that there was some type of noise or of where the offender was placed in a position that, oh, they know I'm here. They've called 911. It doesn't matter if 911 was ever called or not. It's the perception of what the offender has. And I've seen it happen on stakeouts that no one's called 911, and we've seen, but an alarm goes off or a horn blows, and you see a total change in how the offender acts. And sometimes they just take off running. Is this what he did? And he had tunnel vision. Very possible. We just don't know. Yeah, we don't know how long he had the knife. He could have had it long term, or he could have had it just came in the mail that week. I don't know. If they're asking in the area, it would seem that they don't believe that it was something that came in on some shopping network. Um, any chance there is a confession from BK or expected trial? If if their case is stronger than what they currently have, I absolutely believe that there is a possibility, just like with BTK, that you may have some type of situation like that. Oh man. Thank you, Mr. Steve, for all your work and intelligent explanation on the cases you present and the police you represent. Thank you. It's an honor. I tried my best in my career, and it was an honor to serve, and met a lot of great people. Unfortunately, I met those people in the worst of times for them. Now, I enjoyed the interactions I had with the criminals as I was handcuffing. I won't deny that. there is a certain that when you take bad people off the street, there is a satisfaction to that. Enjoyed that part. I hate seeing the good people victimized, but the opposite pole of that is when you do have those uh, interactions when you get the bad guy. It's like cops and robbers. I'm telling you, it is. Oh, okay. You can go online and look at how it is, but the steps would have been at the door, and there's a little step up going in towards the front of the house where the entryway into the bedroom for Xana and Ethan was. But he would have had to pass her doorway uh, uh, twice. She says that he passed when she saw him. She didn't see him when he went evidently towards the room, but he did. She did see him when he was leaving the residence, coming the other way. That's it. I'm turning this car around. I don't even know where that is going, but that's fun. That's funny right there. Is it possible he only planned to kill M and K, but because Xana came out of the room, he had to kill two more? It's possible that he was only going, that he didn't even know that there was two upstairs, uh, because that is just by coincidence uh, that that there was two there. Miss Steve, in your opinion, is that blood running down the outside wall of the house? I don't know what else it could be other than that, and um, and I don't think I've seen it since. So it was cleaned up, um, and I'm sure there's a reason for that. But it had all the uh, of what I would look at and think would be a passive blood flow. Jeff, Steve, you heard anything about BK asking the officer? Has anyone else been arrested? I heard that early on, and like you. And is that something for a misdirection? Because I think maybe Gacy asked the same thing. And is it just something that stuck in his mind to try to put um, that information out there? Because if we go by what the witness says, she only, every time she looked out, she saw no one, or she only saw one person on that final encounter. And she doesn't describe anyone else or any other sounds of persons running. Um, so it may just be a ploy on his part. Steve has to read our text and try to pick out good comments. Exactly. I'm trying to get better at this, guys. When they say law enforcement did surveillance for 4 days at BK home, uh, from a law enforcement, yes, how that been carried out would be like undercover cars. Probably even further from that. We have there's I think there's going to be a lot of drone and aircraft surveillance and other long range. Um, as far as what I did on SWAT, uh, and some things that sniper teams can do, we do a lot of gathering intelligence. And is this what they were able to do? Um, Other than going to that location and seeing the terrain, it is possible that you could have put certain individuals out there with certain skill sets that would be able to obtain that information, keep that surveillance from long distances. And they could have also possibly used certain vehicles and found out and used even homes if they could have secured and known certain relationships and of people's interactions in the community, because there may have been a law enforcement officer that had family that lived in that subdivision. We don't know, and we may never know exactly how they were able to surveil him. But I've set up and gone in and done stalks to get to a hide where you would have an overwatch position so you could relay any type of information. Steve just ignored Pigeon, Michelle, and I. No, I didn't. If I did, I'm sorry. Let me know. If it's something I'm supposed to do with adjusting, sorry, it's not going to happen. If I'm supposed to slow chat or speed chat up, we're we're as good as we're going to get. Let's see here. Steve, wouldn't it be nice if Murphy had BK's blood on him? They'll look for that and see if that's possible. And from a CSI technicians and investigators standpoint, the best case scenario is that during one of these encounters, either on the third floor or on the second floor, that he injured himself, and he does have some type of injury that created a blood trail that law enforcement will be able to say that this blood trail, because there's going to be in each of those violent encounters, there is a massive amount of interactions. There's going to be cast off, and there's just going to be a lot of intermingling and mixture of blood. And so, from law enforcement standpoint and investigative, you have to look at it and say, how can someone identify something that is an outlier that looks different? That we have a sustained blood trail that is 20 or 30 feet away from a victim. Then we start looking at and determining that, oh, okay, this has the potential to be an injury to our offender. And they'll start collecting and analyzing that blood trail and making sure that they have it secured and recovered. I don't know what some of that means that's happening in here. Hello, Michelle. Good to see you. Michelle knows all about crime scene stuff also. I heard that the FBI posed as trash man and collected his trash at his parents' house. I heard the same. And there's actually Supreme Court ruling on the ability to collect it once it's on curbside. Oh, man. Y'all are funny. There's all different type of possibilities that they may go, and we have to look at that. If he was aided in any shape, form, or fashion by others, that would be something that would be looked at, and law enforcement may use as. Let's see here. I hope I'm doing better on my getting through this chat. Don't want to, collecting trash at parents' house. What about the statement he's been seen depositing trash in neighbor's trash can at 4 a.m.? Um, and I've been, you know, you're looking at 24/7 surveillance for them to even um, be able to tell you that he's out moving. They knew a lot about what was going on um, at about this individual, and for him to be or someone to be up moving about at 4 a.m. and that's how come they were structured um, when they went in and effected the arrest at the hour they did. Um, and but it is extremely interesting, and this is something that will come out in court because how many of you get up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning and take out trash? You have to be working, but someone home from school is something that I'll have to do that. Triple S, I think I forgot to wash all the soap out of my coffee cup. Um, I will get a comment from Mrs. Steve about my coffee cup. Now, this is a coffee cup that is new, but I have another coffee cup up that after my grandson um, was born that Christmas, a couple months after, uh, my baby Steve gave me a coffee cup, and I never wash a coffee cup. From the first time I pour coffee in it, I never wash it. And I had that coffee cup, and it was set. And um, about 8 months later, I found it in the dishwasher. And me and I discussed that with Mrs. Steve, and we've never washed it again. And she just shakes her head at me, and can't understand how come I'm still alive. But I have a coffee cup upstairs that hasn't been washed but one time in 5 years. Oh, someone had to go bye bye. Excellent. Oh my goodness. My name is Babe now. That's so funny. So what is going on? Yes, he was trying to pick me up. So what is going on in chat tonight, guys? That's, oh my goodness. I missed that. Apparently I look Canadian. Uh, I do too. I know that with my accent, it's hard to tell that I'm not Canadian. But anyway, um, I was able to stay up with chat tonight. I don't know how many people I missed, but if y'all have anyone or anything that I need to get back to, let me know. Here's the one I missed. If he was a voyeur, he probably has photos on his phone. Even if deleted, they can recover them. That's possible if he knew, because I can tell you that you have to be careful with the phones and taking photos. That flashes come on some of these devices, and as I have a camera up that I processed, spent a lot of money for, and I still at times have no idea why it flashes at times that I don't want it to flash. It's far smarter than I am. But so y'all have some type of mingle going on with the chat here. I see. Y'all are passing up. Um, do you think they got him? From what the Chief Fry has says, absolutely. He seems confident. And from what evidence, as you can see, the probable cause affidavit, that when you add all those up, and you could even take one of those elements out, and I would still think they have the right guy. You could take the DNA out, which is critical at this point, but there's going to be other DNA. Um, but all the other information appears to be so um, compelling that, yes, I do believe they have the right guy. I thought you were from Texas. No, I'm Georgia. I'm wondering if he is a voyeur. That is very common that they would be, and uh, I always you have to look for that for certain type of personalities, psychopaths. What type of fantasy is it? Does he have some type of um, uh, that type of fantasy that would involve voyeurism? But yes, it's extremely possible. I'm just sitting here watching the whack a troll, not whack a mole, whack a troll, or whatever. It could be a mole. Ah, I've got called up. I'm telling you. Uh, I see that y'all have more fun in chat. That's great. I'm in Indiana. Watched you a long time. Thank you. Appreciate that. Michelle says, in my opinion, it's 100% him. And I agree with her. She has a career like myself. And we take it at, we trust what law enforcement tells us and we read what it tells us and you go with what facts they give you. Oh, goodness. Andrew, whack a troll is better. I agree. In my opinion, he was making all the stupid mistakes a criminal would make, or he was really trying to trick law enforcement with the cam evidence, the sheath, phone records, throwing garbage in neighbors' trash can, etc. I don't think he tricked anybody, but he did make a lot of mistakes. And um, if he committed any other crimes and he committed 1/4 of the amount of mistakes he did on this, I believe he would have been found out sooner. So that's one of the things that would lead you that this was something that, um, uh, as far as his first offense, and it may have all led down to the one time that his timing that he picked, that he expected to be one victim, when then it turned into two, then it turned into four, and it was absolutely a debacle. Oh, me, y'all in chat, y'all are funny. That is an interesting perspective. That's a good point. They had no other reason to even bring the phone with him unless he wanted to use it to take photos in airplane mode. Um, I hadn't really thought about that. I'll have to think on that some more of why he would bring that. Um, are you just that linked to it? I mean, a lot of us will never leave our phones for any reason. Karen says, I came to join the late night club. Glad you're here. We need as many people on the morning watch as we can get, and or the graveyard shift, whichever way. Um, I don't think I can change the name to the graveyard shift. Uh, do you think this is a weird fantasy you had for a long time? Certain psychopaths, absolutely. Um, if you know, uh, whenever they're going to analyze his whole, as they're already, there's professionals out there, and what will the courts order as far as mental evaluations? And I know that they said that there's no such thing as the um, insanity plea or insanity in the state of Idaho. Um, I don't know, will there be other mental evaluations? There's possible. It's just whatever the courts decide and whatever his um, uh, defense decides. But there's some sick individuals out there. I know that. As law enforcement said, there was a target. For the measures taken and for you to drive 10 miles anywhere and go into an area that you had been at least 12 times towards, um, all victims, regardless, are targeted at some point. And it depends. Sometimes people are targeted from within seconds of an encounter with a person that eventually commits whatever offense against them. And then sometimes you're targeted days, weeks, months, or even years prior to. BTK, as he described in his, that he had multiple targets, and he did research on them for some of them extended periods of time. And so when we talk about targeting, it, uh, most certainly they were targeted. Now, let's say that he had one or two of the victims in the house that he was targeting, or only one. The others became targets as he encountered them, and just from whatever type of interactions he had that night. So you can't always say that he was targeting the whole house. He may have only been targeting one, which led to four. Uh, and we'll find out more about that in the future. Steve is always informative. This is the funniest time I've had in chat. Well, I'm glad you're having a good time in chat. I saw an article. You mentioned this. BK didn't expect the whole nation to be looking for his vehicle. The case got way bigger than the small town he committed it in. And I saw, and what, the coincidence that the driver that took um, Madison and them home that night actually was not only lived close to BK, but also had tipped in his car, which I thought that's great that you had such a community coming together and also a country looking for him. Absolutely amazing. Uh, the law enforcement recovered BK's phone. Um, I know they have the data from it. I don't know if they have the actual phone. Will recovering the weapon be critical in a conviction? I'm sure they want to have it. And as I've discussed on an earlier show, that the they will look at the injuries that were inflicted on each of the victims, and by releasing the sheath, I believe that all the injuries will be consistent with a knife that would fit within that sheath, because that was something that was brought up earlier. That would be a great risk that if the knife wouldn't fit within that sheath. Not saying he couldn't have had two knives, but at least some of the injuries would be consistent with a knife that would fit within that sheath. Steve is great. We are a mess, Karen. On I've been wanting to do the late show. Actually, for a lot longer than what we did, but we just decided to start now, and I'm glad I have, and I enjoy this. Because otherwise, I'd just be up um, watching TV. He would need to be evaluated to be competent for trial. Plus, if there's any type of medications he needs. Thank you, you two, Grandma. $10. Thank you for all you being so kind. You are the best. I appreciate your support, and they are absolutely the best. His crimes are obviously premeditated. Do you think he'll receive a death sentence if found guilty? Um, if they seek it, I absolutely believe they'll get it. It said that BK changed license plates just after the murders. If so, that screams guilty, in my opinion. I know that they said he registered it after. I found that interesting, um, and that you would go and and was the reason he did is that they were wrong on the years, and he thought that he was in the clear. Very possible. And the reason I think that they never updated, I believe that uh, um, Koberger was on the short list of suspects in November, early on, far sooner. And I've talked with Chris about this numerous times, and I believe that he was that law enforcement had a suspect for quite a while, and I just didn't realize how soon. But I believe he was on that short list, and I believe that when the FBI came back in and updated that, oh, that car could be a 2015, 2016, or whatever is in the probable cause affidavit, that they already had him narrowed down as the number one suspect, and they had no need to update the public as far as the year class, and so they didn't. And that original what they released, but by the time they got that, it could be a later year. They'd already had him uh, uh, under their focus. Let's see if I can get back in here. We're having some people that are unhappy. Was that Hyundai registered to BK or is that? I suspect it was him, but it's possible it could have been father, but I expect it's him. Because I think when they said that the registry of when he registered at Pullman, when the first law enforcement officer was requested to check all the records, I think it mentioned his name. Question, Josh Posh, is it possible the location as party house or college student area was initially the target more so than necessarily a person? He may have originally started off exactly as you said, looking at a certain part of the community. Um, and traveled there, and for it may have what made him focus on those certain individuals. If he did put them under surveillance, he would have had to backtrack them. But did he meet them at a restaurant prior to, or at a some type of bar or something that he saw and then trailed them and stalked them? There's several different ways he might eventually narrowed his scope down to them. Pigeon Mac is having fun tonight. I'm glad to see that. Let's see where we're at here. It jumped on me. So anyway, let me see where. Uh, Sometimes it does this stuff. I don't know if it jumped. If I jumped over some people, just let me know. I probably did because it did the thing that it flashed, and sometimes it just does its own thing. These Google machines are tough. Oh, Steve, this is my idea of late night clubbing. Absolutely. Um, Michelle Nichols. Oh, that'd be a great shirt. Steve is a night owl and Pigeon Mac as well. Pigeon. Oh, that's funny. Okay. I missed this question before, Nancy. I'm sorry. I asked earlier, do you believe he's been inside the house before based on how quickly he committed the crimes and left? There were many doors and staircases in the house. I would be lost. I think there, if you look at some of the um, ways that they rented out these homes and the apps that are out there, he may have been able to do it through an online search. And then when he goes and if he had them under surveillance and was stalking them and saw them come into the residence at night and simply watch which light came on in what part of the house. It's easy enough to determine movement in a house, especially when people come and go at night. Been there, watched it, and drawed out house plans by just watching from the time a suspect would enter a house to what room they went in and what was the final lights being turned off. It's easy enough to determine where the bedrooms are. And I don't know how much surveillance he put them under. Thank you. Uh, Appreciate that. You're doing a great job, Mr. Steve. We really like listening to someone with a law enforcement perspective. I work with some really great investigators, and uh, I had a relatively interesting career, and you know, I'm glad that I have the opportunity to have some type of impact now that I'm retired. Do you think law enforcement thought this guy was so egotistical that they played to his ego and acted like they knew nothing to make him think he got away with it? A lot of people thought that this was, you're 6 weeks into it and people are screaming it's going cold, um, which is not, you know, we looked at Delphi, which was cold at 5.5 years, but and I, Department of Justice, they they defined it 3 years, and until it gets past even the first 12 months, it's still not a cold case. But so a lot of people jump to that gun, that conclusion that it was, or jumped the gun to the conclusion it was cold when it's not. Although I've seen the floor plans, I would really have to imagine myself inside to get a better perspective. Absolutely, you're correct. Um, you can always imagine what it is, but when you get there, you still, until you see the size of the rooms and how wide the stairwells are, that pictures don't give it justice. And you find that true a lot of times when I go out and work my cold cases and get to the scene of the crime, that you can look at it all day on Google Earth, but until you set foot, you don't see the terrain. When I went and did the testing on the phone pings on at Delphi, I never imagined how rough that terrain was until I got there. And yes, boots on the ground is a totally different perspective. Oh my goodness. Um, I watched Chris's video of BK and his father getting stopped. I couldn't believe the evil look on BK's face when his dad was talking to the officer. That was an interesting look, and I've seen it 100 times. People get you stop them, and some people are extremely friendly. Some people are standoffish, and some of them seem offended. And sometimes it works out for them, one or the other. Just depends on the mood of the officer. If nothing else, I've got a fun chat tonight. That's what we want. Katie's family thought that the police were not doing anything. Um, and I think there was some interactions there that, and they have liaisons and things that work with families now. And, um, you know, hopefully they can improve upon that. The worst part to me was the suspicion on the ex-boyfriend. This crime's not in line with a domestic. Yes, and that's something that the social media and the web sleuths and everybody has to be so careful on. So easy to point fingers and have impact on people's lives and destroy them. Michelle, we love you, Steve. I'm very kind of you. I appreciate and love all y'all, and means a lot to me. Um, as we get older, we hope that we are able to have some type of impact. All right, guys. If anyone else has any questions that wants to be answered, just put them in here right quick. I'll spend a little bit more time, and if not, we'll start easing out of here, whichever way y'all want to go. Appreciate y'all being here. Appreciate the donations, the support, members. There's a lot of stuff that we're with this platform that we want to do and go. And I appreciate y'all being here. And I enjoyed sitting here drinking coffee and talking to you. And Karen, so glad I found your channel. I'm glad you found it also. Sister, here we go. Do you think one of the girls had rejected him? It's possible. And we'll know from the his devices. And I think they mentioned that, or there was rumors um, of how often the parallels of his phone was with the victims. And Jeff, thank you, Steve. Enjoy your live streams and hearing what you have to say. Appreciate that. All righty, guys. Well, we're going to get out of here now, and I'm glad all y'all came, and appreciate spending time with you. And I'll see y'all. Let's see, tomorrow. I don't know if when I'm going to be on Chris' show. I know we got a phone call to talk tomorrow, and so at some point during this week I will be on the show. I just don't know when, but we'll get that all figured out. And I have my next live Tuesday with a presentation for 8. But y'all guys have a great night, and appreciate y'all being here. Stay safe now.